right, there's Fred. I think we're ready to go. We're on.
It has started. Let's see. Is it almost? Now you are live.
Outstanding. Thanks. All right. Welcome to the July 6th, 2021 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. I'd like to open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very good. Thank you. Okay. We have the June 21st minutes. Can we get a motion for approval unless there are questions or changes that need to be made?
I move we approve the minutes as written.
Thank you, Fred. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Matt. All in favor? Aye.
I
Any opposed?
I
Carried.
abstain. I recused myself, so. I
Oh,
can't
that's
vote.
right. That's right. Thank you, Donna.
Mhm.
All right, we have two applications. And I see both Mr. Rotash is with us and Mr. Logan. So I'm going to at least presume for the time being that these are the first applications that are being presented by the two applicants. So we'll just run through the basic, if you will, the ground rules. We'll give the applicants an opportunity to make the presentation. If there are exhibits that are going to be used, just let us know which ones you're referring to and do your best to use compass directions or things that are identifiable on the particular exhibit. North, south, east, and west, streets, or whatever. Instead of saying over here and over there, that's going to be hard when we read the records. The other thing that I think the board would appreciate is that when you're making your application, certainly take your time. We'll give you all the time that you need. And we're going to do our best not to talk over you. And if you would do your best not to talk over us, so that when Kim creates the record, she can tell who's talking and what was said. And if there are any questions, certainly feel free to ask. We'll do our best to answer them. If I'm not mistaken, both of these applications have been sent to the County Planning Board. Is that right, Kim?
That's right.
Okay, so the board cannot make a decision today. We need to wait for the County Planning Board to make their recommendations. And if everything goes right, the next time we meet, we'll have an opportunity to review those comments. And you'll have another opportunity to respond to the County Planning Board's comments. The board may ask some more questions here, but in the end, we'll certainly give you an opportunity to address both the zoning board's comments and questions and the County Planning Board's comments. All right, with that being said, Mr. Rotash. You there?
You might be muted, I think.
Okay. If you can hear us, Mr. Rotash, you need to unmute.
Unmute.
There we go. Okay.
Can you hear me?
We can
All right.
now. All right, very good. So your application is for a 40 by 40 accessory structure forward of the primary structure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we all have the folder. So you go ahead, make your presentation, and then we're going to one by one, as the board, ask you some questions about your application. So
Okay.
go ahead when you're
Yeah.
ready.
Yeah. I'm aware that a garage barn, which is what I want to put up, has to be, I guess, further, the way the code reads, further back from the road than the house is. that would be pretty much impossible for me. It's the only spot on my property where it's not completely wooded is the area that I marked out for this barn. And you know, it's a garage. Basically, I've got 4 vehicles and a tractor to put in it, and it really needs to be close to the house for me to even be interested in continuing, you know, with it. I have nowhere else on the property that I could put it that wouldn't cost a lot of money in terms of fill and getting rid of trees, which I definitely don't want to do. And that's pretty much my reason for it. It's near where the electric and things like that are. It's on one side of the driveway at the very end, and the house is on the other side. It's just that. Oh, and by the way, the building that I proposed would be 210 feet back from the road. The house is 300 feet back from the road, and you know, at this time of year, you can't see anything anyhow. It's all wooded except for that one spot. I hope I sold myself, but that's about all I can think of saying.
Okay. Well, let's start with you, Donna. Do you have any questions about this application?
Not at this second.
Fred, questions?
Mr. Rotash, your neighbor sent in the letter.
Yeah.
And he asked if you were going to do mechanical work for hire. And he was nervous about the lights.
Yeah.
So are you going to
I
do?
think he moved to the. It's funny, but you know, for as long as he's lived here, he's never brought anything up like that to me. And I'd be glad to change a few things, but I've got 2 lights out on the house that have been there since it was built, and I don't know. I don't think it's right that, I mean, there's no law against having a light outside your house. I don't understand even what the issue is. I mean, if he had to come over there and said something to me, I could have put a different light fixture on that wouldn't have been so bright, apparent, or something.
Well,
I don't know.
I didn't know which side of your property he was on, but the houses aren't very close anyway.
I know. I knew he was going to find something to complain about. The only thing, the other remark he made in that letter was that he's also somewhat concerned that I'm going to start an auto repair business there. I mean, I don't even know where he comes up with that. I don't even think I've ever repaired my own car once, let alone, and I'm retired. I mean, the whole letter seemed to me like, to me, it was a lot of nonsense, but I understand, you know, I've got to probably respond to something there, but I don't know what it's going to be, you know. I don't know.
What do you have a color in mind that you'd use for the barn, the garage?
The same color as the house. It'd be a light gray color, and the roof would be a real dark blue. The same as the house. It'd have 1 foot overhangs all the way around on all 4 sides, and I can see where he's nervous about, you know, assuming that I would put a bright light on this garage, but I won't. I will definitely not do that. Just to keep him happy, you know. And I don't want to make anybody irritated, but I've lived here longer than anybody on the road, and I just never heard any complaints till now, you know. And if you drove by, I don't think you'd find anything to complain about, if you know. But
that's fair enough.
Yeah.
That's all I've got. Michael, for the
Yeah.
mic.
Sarah, you have
I
any
know.
questions?
I have a question. How many acres do you have?
3.30.
And how far will this garage slash barn be from your house? And it looks like your septic tank.
Oh, it's not, the septic is in back of the house. It's, nowhere near where this barn is. It's
So
at
then-
least 5, yeah.
That leads to my question as to why the barn can't be moved back closer to the house.
Well, I don't see any solution to it to meet the codes, and I just don't. If you were to all come out here, I could show you, but it would cost me a fortune. The house sits on a high spot. The rest of the ground, the land around there is pretty low, and yeah, it's just not a good. There's not a good place. I'd have to cut down a lot of trees and bring in a whole lot of fill dirt and have it compacted. I'm probably looking at. I'd have to find a place. I'd have to put 10 feet of fill in some of these areas just to. There just isn't a. There isn't a close place anywhere near the house. Where I have it is the most convenient for us. That's about the only thing I can say. I would not be able to. I don't have to change my driveway very much. I don't have to do a lot of things that could make this a prohibitively expensive job. This is where I need to do it, I guess. I don't know if I've answered that well enough, but
Well, I mean, just looking at the pictures that were submitted and driving by the property, I mean, I'm not saying that I would feel it necessary to completely meet the code requirement of the barn being completely behind your primary structure, but I feel like there is an opportunity to move it back closer to your house. So we are at some point, I mean, it's a garage. So to me, a garage is storage for vehicles. So typically that's closer to your home. So
where I want to put it is the closest spot to the home. And if you were to come out here, I could show you exactly why. I've got my underground drainage for my basement. There's a ditch on it would be the south side of the house that drains the whole place, the whole building, the house structure, the basement. And I can't, and I've got the septic on, starts out on the south side of the house and then goes around to the east side. That's where my leach lines are. And the only other place anywhere near that house, and I'm sure this wouldn't go over because it would be right over close to the border between me and Stephen Sykes. And I don't think he's gonna, if he's concerned about my lights being on, I don't think he's gonna go for me moving a barn or a garage over there. And it's not gonna be any closer to the house if I did. It's just gonna be a different place. And here's another one. The only other place I can move it, it's still not in back of the house. If somebody could show me a better way of doing it, I'd be more than happy to do it. But it would be for me, it would be a prohibitively expensive proposition to do anything else, and that's where I'm at.
I pulled in your driveway about halfway and far enough so I could see the opening where you're planning on it. And I think if I owned that lot, I'd want to put it in the same place.
Yeah, makes more sense than anywhere else.
And it is back away from the road.
Yeah, it is. It's 210 feet. That's where the barn would be. which seems like a pretty good distance. I can see why they have that every town has that zoning law, because it would really, it'd be a whole different ballgame if my house was 100 feet back from the road and I wanted to do this, you know, and let's face it. So, but I mean, the house is 300 feet back in. I mean, in order for me to put a garage back there, it's going to have to be quite a ways back in, and it would take a whole lot of work for a driveway to get to it. No, I don't know. I've been planning on this place because it makes the most sense of any place on my land, for a lot of the reasons that I mentioned. Yeah.
The doors would be opening to the driveway, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
And I
Fred,
would-
you all set with your questions?
I'm all set.
Okay, Fred, are you all set with your questions?
Yes.
Okay, Matt, questions for you?
Yeah, I've got a couple, Bob. We talked earlier about electricity. Obviously, you're gonna have electricity run to it, but you're okay with the condition that there's no exterior lighting?
If I was to have a light for this barn, my proposal would be to have it, like I'm gonna say, I'm gonna have a 1 foot overhang, and then I could see maybe have something that shines straight down in front of each door, just so I could see the garage door maybe, but certainly nothing, now that I know my neighbor doesn't like the light, I'd certainly find a solution that would make him happy, I guess. But
I mean,
You
because
know,
if I recall the location, where it is probably higher than your neighbor's, than Steve's property, right? It's
where
on the
well,
elevation,
part of it
based down there,
back
like
end.
their backyard, right? As it
Yeah.
goes down towards the creek there, right?
Yeah.
Personally, I think I'd like to see no exterior lighting on it, right? We try to listen to everybody that chimes in on these things. I don't think it would be too unreasonable to do that.
No,
If
it
you
wouldn't
maybe
bother.
have an example, and the only reason I want to say it is we can talk about what the lighting is all day long here, and unless there's
Yeah.
some kind of condition or something that really defines what that lighting should or should not be, and I think we can talk about it, somewhere between no lighting and, to your point, maybe it's something that has to be downward facing towards the road, in certain times where it can or cannot be turned on or off. Sorry. We can bound that, right? Because what we do here kind of runs with the land. The other question I had is, in your drawing, you had indicated that it was either going to be 40 or 50 feet long. Is it 40 or 50?
Well, when I called, there's 3 places I believe I called for estimates, and I went with 40 by 40. What I wanted to actually do was I was going to add. It's kind of why it'd be easier. It's hard to describe, but like if I had a picture of 40 by 40, and if you extend one side down another 10 feet, and you've seen a lot of barns like this, and they have like an outside area, like an overhang of like a 10-foot section there. I'd kind of like to do that, so it would be 50 foot wide and 40 feet long, but that's just what I'd like to do. But I to compare prices, I just kept it simple at 40 by 40, and that's where it's at.
And I assume, Mike, because of the size, this is probably going to the planning board.
It's over 1,000 feet, so, well.
That is correct. It is going to the planning board.
Okay, so they'll get into the aesthetics of it. I guess at this point, we're really just talking about how far from the road we're looking at here. And Bob, maybe to get back to the lighting, and maybe just a condition that says that downward facing lighting or something to that effect, to to kind of meet
Yeah, and
you and your neighbor there.
yeah, and I don't have to have a light outside. I mean, I'm willing to, you know, bend anything that I've had predetermined, you know, and just to make everything go smooth. I don't want to.
Sure.
I don't. It's not a big deal for me to make some changes into what I plan on doing if I have to.
Sure. And Mike, do we have to wait for the county as well to come back on this one?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's certainly time after we have the discussion today to revisit it. The other question, I remember a number of years ago, that creek got pretty far up your road. How far did that creek go? And is there any concerns with the placement of the barn?
Well, the guy next door that's upstream from me was over yesterday, and I talked to him. You know, he wondered if there was anything he could do to help me out here, and I said, no, there's nothing you can do, and I went over all that with him, of course. I definitely don't want to dam up anything, but I realize that putting a 3 foot of fill under where I want to place this barn certainly isn't going to help a flood stage if it ever happened again, but there's some things that I might be able to do, and I talked to him about it yesterday, but there's some things I might be able to do. I might be able to cut down my driveway a few inches in one area in case it ever did flood again. I mean, it can be a wet area. In 1992, I got hit pretty hard up here, so I know what I shouldn't do, and that's I definitely don't want to dam up. The only thing that would affect by me putting this barn there would be that white 1-bedroom cottage there to the south of me, probably. You know, it's been a long time since that's happened, but my neighbor used to live across the street years ago, and Mrs. Northrup, and she told me that was a once in 100 year experience, and I guess her family had lived there all that time. So, you know, I'm not saying it can't happen again, but it could. But I don't know. When I talk to my neighbor, we're all under the impression, though, that you almost have to protect your own property because nobody else is going to, and he understands that, and I kind of understand it. But I don't want to dam up the water if it ever did flood again, and I told him that I would keep this garage as far to the east as I could get it, and so that there's a lot of area in the front of my property for that water to go over my driveway and flood it, and go downhill if it ever happens again.
And are we sure we're not putting a structure in a floodplain or anything to that effect per DEC? Nothing's changed in that area?
Well,
I'm sorry.
I
was asking Al.
I'm sorry.
Code enforcement officer. No problem.
There's no documented under your floodplain on his property.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that documented, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just is not documented.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else, Matt?
I'm okay for now.
Okay. So, Mr. Rotash, you mentioned a couple of times that you didn't know of any law regarding lights outside your building. The town code does have codes regarding such things.
Okay.
Dark sky, the lights need to be dark sky compliant. But I appreciate your willingness to cooperate with your neighbors. That's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
The other piece that Matt brought up, and I'm also concerned, that your proposal really needs to be pinned down. The board really can't deal with ifs and buts.
Yeah.
You got to pick a size. So if it's 40 by 40, then that's what we'll look at. If it's 45 by 50, we'll look at it. But you can't be then just on a whim to say, well, I kind of feel like it, so I think I'm going to expand it to something bigger than what I actually asked for. So either today or at least by the next application, or excuse me, the next meeting, you got to pick a number so we know what we're dealing with. Can we do that?
Well, I'm pretty sure I've got that in my own mind. I know what I'd like to do, and the part of the building that would be enclosed would be 40 by 40. And what I'm talking about doing is putting a 10-foot overhang, extending the roof line down on the one eave side there.
Well, that's, and Al, correct me if I'm wrong, but overhangs and eaves and things, that's going to count for how large the building is. So again, Mr. Rotash, I don't mean to nitpick you here, but you can't tell us that I kind of think that this is what I'm sort of going to do. That you got to pick a number so we know what we're dealing with, because if a variance is granted, it runs with the land, which means whether you're there a year and you sell it to somebody else who sells it to somebody else, that variance runs to all the new owners, including you. So it's really important that if this variance is granted, that not only that this board knows what they've granted, but the public knows what's been granted, exactly what you're asking for. Okay? So it either today or by the next meeting, you got to pick a number on that dimension so we know what we're dealing with. Okay, can we do that?
Okay, and I will do that.
Good.
I guess the only thing that I was told by the one builder that I think would like to go with, that I've got to come up with, he's got to come up with plans. I am pretty sure, doesn't he?
Yeah, for a building permit, plans are going to be needed, which brings me then to the next point, that whichever contractor that you hire, it would help this board out, I think, tremendously. If you get some information from that contractor that says, this is really the best place, it can't go anywhere else. And if you were to put it in the wooded area, it's going to cost X amount of dollars more. Because right now, in all due respect, sir, you're just telling us that it would cost a fortune. Doesn't tell us a lot. What we really need is it doesn't have to be to the penny, but if your contractor says, hey, if we put it back into the woods, we got to cut down trees, and it's going to cost about this much to take the trees down, it's going to cost about this much for the fill, and now we have, as a board, now we have an idea of what cost prohibitive means. Okay.
I guess to get right to the point, and I understand, and I'll do my best to get whatever you need here, information wise. But where I've chosen to put the barn, I mean, if I can't put it there, then I think I'll be withdrawing anything, because it makes no sense to me to put it. Why would you want to put a garage where you're going to be parking your cars 100 plus feet from your house? Why would you want to do that? It just
without due respect,
let me try and
I don't
explain
think
this
that's
to
what
you,
Mike
Mr.
is telling you to do. I think he's trying to explain to you that this is we balance pros and cons, and benefits to the applicant, benefits to the public, and we just need data. That's all. We really can't go off of, like he said, I think it's going to cost a fortune, or here or there. We're just looking for you to do a little more homework. I don't think anyone here has said they're against your application, but we just need, we need some facts. That's all.
So, Mr. Rotash, for a zoning board to grant an application, there's 5 criteria. And if we're going to grant a variance, we need to push some facts into the criteria that qualify an application for a granting of a variance. And the questions that we're asking you, we're trying to sort out and maybe plug in those facts into, for example, will it change the character of the neighborhood? But really the one question that we're focusing on when you say it's cost prohibitive, the criteria that we're focusing on is whether or not there is an alternative feasible means to achieve what you're trying to do. Well, that's another way of saying it's like, well, it's going to cost a lot of money if we put it some other place. All right, well, we're just trying to plug in some numbers here so that we understand what you're trying to explain to us, that in your opinion, it really can't go anywhere else. So if you help us out, understand why it can't go anywhere else because it's cost prohibitive, well, one way you could do that is to get a contractor to say, boy, it's going to cost a lot of money to cut all those trees down and put all kinds of fill back there. Okay, does that make some sense?
It might make sense, but the one gentleman there that drove in here, Fred, I think he said it best, and I just don't think if you drive in here and you look anywhere in this place, you're going to find a better spot to put it than I have chosen. All my utilities are buried under the driveway. I don't have to worry about a lot of things. I don't have to worry about a driveway extension. There's a lot of things, and I don't know. I mean, I can write them on a paper and tell it all to you, but I think we've kind of gone over it pretty much here.
Okay, I think you're right.
I don't know.
We're going around in
There's a
circles
good-
here. So I
What?
think you understand what we're looking for. Just because one board member has one opinion,
Yeah, I
we're
understand.
looking for all the other board members too. So you can do it or don't. That's certainly up to you. They're just suggestions. No one's forcing you to do anything. We're
You know, sometimes driving up to a place and physically looking at things gives you a whole lot better idea than looking at a map. And my whole point for bringing that up was, I think if you drove in my driveway, you would see how much more sense it makes to put it where I want to put it.
understood.
To me, that's my business decision for Bob Rotash. I don't know what anybody else would do, but I know what I can afford, and that's it. So.
All right, understood. Al, given the size of the barn, does sprinkler system required?
Sprinkler system is not required for residential structures.
Good.
For a residential structure? Even though this is a barn, that's,
Well, if it isn't a residential structure, then what is it?
a barn?
Yeah, I mean, it's.
Are people gonna live in it?
I know one thing that's not going to happen. With my neighbor Steve Sykes' letter, he's concerned that I'm going to start a auto repair business in it, and I mean that just kind of goes to show you what I'm up against here. It was a nonsensical remark. I don't know why he even made it. He had no desire to work anymore, and I'm not. And it's not even a question. I don't even know why he would bring it up. He could have brought up anything. It would have made as much sense. Well, I suppose.
All right. Al, is there anything else that you think we ought to know before we circle on once more for other questions?
Nope, just to reiterate on the accessory structure, everything that's been explained here, that's a accessory structure to a residential use. The sprinkler portion of our code does not require sprinklers for such a building,
Okay, good.
regardless of size.
Donna, any other further questions?
None.
Sarah, further questions?
No,
Fred, any other questions?
No,
Matt, any other questions?
No, I would just, my only other comment is just, I know you referred to 1992, Bob, but I'm pretty sure within the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years that water's been almost up to the road. I was
No, I'll tell you what. I
can.
can guarantee you that I haven't had any happenings as far as flood go that got me worried. Okay, I mean I do have a small 1 foot maybe 2-foot berm on the south side of my property, next to the drainage ditch that goes all the way back. And it's there for a reason. And it got up that high for a part of a day here this spring. And it did its job. It deflected a little water. The guy next door lives in a real bad spot to the one to the south there, and I can tell you in '92 the old people who lived there had to sit on the kitchen table. The water was so high. So it didn't really do much to me, but it came real close. And I'm just saying that
Just
even though
something
it's not
to-
considered a floodplain, it can flood a little bit. It did. So.
Anything else, Matt?
Nothing else. Thank you.
All right,
Mike?
Mr. Rotash, I just want to, you brought up a prior comment about something in the nature of, again, the flooding and you need to take care of your own property. I would caution you with that kind of philosophy, and I would recommend that if you have an attorney, talk to your attorney that what happens if you do something to your property and as a result of whatever you've done causes flooding or damage to your neighbor's property. There could be consequences. So I just caution you with it. That's all. I don't want you to be led to the belief that just you can do whatever you want with your property, and that's not quite true.
And that's not the way I meant it. But
Okay, all right.
I'm talking with my neighbor, the only one that is even in danger of possibly getting flooded, and that's the way he talked, and that's just for what it's worth. That's the only way. Nothing's going to happen here unless we protect ourselves. I can tell you that. I don't know. To me, that was a pretty obvious, pretty honest comment. If the water wants to get that high, you've got to be able to do something about it. And it's happened a very few times in the last 100 years, but it could happen. So, I understand.
Okay. I don't know who.
I don't know.
Him or Susie? You were, I think I.
Oh, it was Susie. I have 3 comments from Steve Sykes on YouTube.
Oh, boy.
The first one, he says that he does agree with Bob that the location he wants to put the barn is the best location. And he also says that the downlight suggestion is also okay with him.
The what?
To put the light facing down, your suggestion.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then the last comment was about flooding. He says that on July 13th, 2017, the property flooded and came from the house south of Bob across his property and then through Mr. Sykes's, and he has photos.
I'm sure he does.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. Thank you, Susie.
Welcome.
Mr. Rotes, anything else that you want to touch on? For now, we're going to table this until we get the comments from the County Planning Board.
No, I have nothing else to say. How long do you think it'll be before because either I'm just waiting to find out one way or the other, because I've got to make a contract with a builder here pretty quick, because the waiting list is a good 3 months. So.
Understood. The next meeting we have, Kim, is it the July 16th?
Okay.
I don't know my calendar.
July 14th is the county meeting, and ours is July 19th.
July 19th. Okay. So, Mr. Rotash, the next meeting is July 19th. We will review the County Planning Board's comments. You'll have an opportunity to address those. And there could be more questions from this board regarding your application, and you'll also have an opportunity to address those questions.
Yeah.
All right, do you have any questions for us
And-
right now?
Probably not, I guess. For what it's worth, though, I mean, I offered to buy the place next door there, and and if I did, I would have knocked it over, and there would have never have been a problem with it ever getting flooded again. That the place was built right on the side of the creek there, and I gotta ask you, as long as everybody's scrutinizing my situation here, I don't know. I find it kind of odd that when this house was built, it had an illegal septic system in it, and it was all redone. The house next door was done by the same guy, and I was told years ago it was the same situation. Nobody ever did anything about it, and I don't know. I think a lot of people are worried about my situation, but I think by the year 2021, I think every house in this country ought to have a legal septic system, and I'm not sure that is the case down here. So, for what it's worth, I'll just sit here and patiently I'll wait, and we'll see what happens. That's all.
Okay, thanks so much, Mr. Rotash. We'll see you on the 19th. Will you be you'll be doing the
Sorry,
same
what?
thing? Yes, you're joining us on the 19th?
I plan on it.
Good.
Yeah.
Great, very good. We'll look
Come
forward
to
to.
the town hall, Mike.
Yes.
He has to come to the town hall.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. Mr.
The
Rotash will
19th.
be coming to the town hall. You don't
Okay.
have to, but I would recommend you doing that.
I will. I haven't got much else to do. I'm retired.
Okay, we'll look forward to seeing you on the 19th at the town hall,
Okay, and what time would that be?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Okay. Thank you very much.
Very good. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Mr. Logan, how are you?
Good evening, everyone. Very well, thank you.
Good. I think you heard the drill, right? We're gonna
Mhm.
let you make your presentation. This is another one that's gonna go to the county planning board, so we can't make a decision today. We'll be asking you
Okay.
some questions after your application. And it looks like you have 3 variance requests. Setback for the shed, 15 feet is required. The horse barn and the manure pond must be 100 feet or more. This looks like it's closer to the proposed lot line. And the horse barn is forward of the primary structure. So I think part of what's happening here, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you want to divide the property, which is causing, if you will, the need for the variances. Is that about it in a nutshell?
That's correct.
Okay, very good. Okay,
Good
so,
summary.
yeah, so make your presentation and fill in any kind of blanks and let us know what you want to do.
Okay, so the house that we live in is 7117 Dryer Road, right next door on the long driveway you see in the aerial on your screen. We have owned actually 13 and a half acres since 1982, and subdivided the western parcel 4 acres with the Figuritos who live there now. And then the second subdivision for my wife's parents who have passed away in the last 10 years. And so we, several years ago, moved to 7117 Dryer Road on the top of the hill, which is the bottom of your screen. We had intended to sell, we've always intended to sell the 1 acre parcel with the house at 7081 Dryer Road. And between the time that we parceled off the piece to my wife's parents and 2003, we acquired a couple of horses. And in 2003, we came before the zoning board to get a variance on the side setback for the horse barn. And if you want to go back to the other drawing, you can see the lot line from the new corner near the horse barn goes diagonally back to the back of the property everything to the east of that was about 3 acres. And most of which, 2 acres of it contain horse pasture and the horse barn. But our intent back at the application in 2003 was to subdivide the parcel once we moved into my wife's folks' place. And just for the record, that we had agreed to parcel off the property for my wife's folks so that we would have first rights to acquire the parcel from her parents from the estate. So we have since done that. And at the time we put the horse barn on, we expected to be doing that. And so we asked to put the barn where it is. The zoning board did the review. It's only a 15-foot setback from the current property line. We're actually improving the setback to 39.5 feet, as you can see on that plan. But it still doesn't meet the 100-foot setback that's required. And now it's ahead of the parcel or of the house that's on 7117, which is what we want to join, which I think Mikey just stated. So long story short, that was the anticipated plan. The zoning board reviewed it. That was the reasoning I gave for putting the barn where it was at the time. So we would have access off of the driveway to 7117. And they all agreed that that would be a reasonable approach and granted the variance with this expectation. So now if we're in a position to sell the property at 7081 and put the lot line in the approximate location that we anticipated back in 2003, and we're faced with this variance request. So that's the need for that. The manure pile is an odd one because the location of it now is the only place we could have put it with the old lot line, because it was 100 feet from our neighbors to the east, the Wojciechs, more than 100 feet from the Simons, and then it was exactly 100 feet from the soon to be eliminated property line to the Bernigers property, my wife's parents. So now it will be less than 100 feet from, I'll call it a side setback, to the proposed property line. And so that's a variance we're going to request in this application, and also request for the ability to actually move that or stage the manure pile from where it is now and move it to the back of the lot, and which borders Canandaigua. And that shows up, if you can switch to the other aerial. At the bottom, that orange oval, it's about the location of where we would move the manure pile. And it's just behind the pasture fencing, which you can perhaps make out just, I'll call it north of that, going east-west. So we would put it just outside the fence line. The other issue was the shed, as you mentioned, on 7081, is now 14.3 feet from the proposed lot line. Whereas I think, Al, you said 15 feet was required. I originally read it as 40 feet, but you corrected me. So that's not as critical, but we still have a shed there, and I'd like to get it approved if possible. Yeah, and the shed does go to 7081 dryer. It does not go with 7117. So that's in a nutshell, probably a little long-winded, but hopefully you followed all that. And I'm glad to answer any questions you have.
Great, thanks so much. Donna, questions?
Yeah, I got a couple. 7081 has a shed on it now
Correct.
that you're asking for a variance.
Yes, as we put the lot line in, the shed becomes now closer than the setback requirement.
Because you changed the lot line because you're going to sell it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we want to keep the horse pasture and the barn with 7117. And there's 2 acres of the 3 acres that are part of 7081 are going to be attached to 7117 or amended, or I'm not sure in the proper phrase, but
Okay.
you can see how the new lot will look in that picture, the survey map that we had prepared.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And when you move the manure pile back, what type of variance are you asking for it? It has to be 100 foot off the lot line?
Yeah, and it will be closer than 100 feet from Ganondagan. And in actuality, the zoning board, Paul Lytle was chairman at the time, he asked if we wanted at that time to get approval for that variance to put the manure pile less than 100 feet from Ganondagan. And he said if we didn't at that time, they would, without prejudice, consider it in the future. And that's what I'm asking for with this application as well.
Okay. All right, thank you. That helps
You're
me
welcome.
understand what you're doing. Okay.
Okay,
Mhm.
you're welcome.
Right. Fred, do you have any questions?
No,
Okay. Sarah, questions?
I just have one question. The manure pile will be 40 feet from the back property line, and how far from the side?
From the side, it's more than 100.
Oh, it is. So
Yes.
there's nowhere where you can move it slightly forward just to give a little bit more than 40, or is that too close to your house at that point?
It's not, well, it would be on our property, so as far as proximity goes, it wouldn't be too close. There's no variance required for the house that would 7117, but if we move it forward north, then it's inside the pasture fence line.
Okay.
So we were
okay.
just putting it slightly behind the fence line, and yeah, it violates the variance for, or the requirement for 100 feet to Ganondagan.
I have nothing further, Mike.
Right. Matt, questions?
Just so I understand, what is different here with how you're operating today? Is this really how everything is today in the issues created because you're doing the subdivision? So everything is really pre-existing,
Correct.
but because of the subdivision, it's kind of put you in this spot here.
Yeah, there's absolutely no change in how we're using the property. We own both parcels now. We were living at 7081 as long as my wife's folks were alive, and they were certainly more than amenable to doing what we did. We actually accessed a barn from their driveway, and some of the horse pasture they allowed us to use over the lot line as well. So they understood that this is where we were going. They actually planned for it with their estate. So there was never an issue there. So
Okay, and the barn itself was just built, you said, back in 2003, I think you said.
yeah, right. It's a 24 by 26 foot square or rectangular barn.
Okay. All right, I'm okay. No further questions.
All right, Mr. Logan, you currently own horses?
Yes,
How many horses?
2.
Any plans on having more than 2 horses?
No, they're kind of retired at the moment. We ride them occasionally, but they're very big pets.
They are.
At some point,
They produce a lot of manure.
they do. Especially our pink Percheron. He's prolific. So he's a big boy. So
Well,
yeah, we don't intend to replace them. I'm
I
retiring in the near future here, so.
I ask that because, you know, the more horses that you have, the more manure problem that you have, which
Correct.
creates a concern. It's not so much how many horses, it's well, now, you know, you're proposing to have it within 100 feet of a lot line. So if there were, say, 2 horses, and I know horses a little bit, but not a lot, but you have 4 horses, now you've just presumably double the amount of manure in the lot line.
Depends on the size of the horse. Sometimes it's more.
It could be more. That's right. That's right. So I think you heard the discussion at the last application. Is there anywhere else on that property that you could, I guess, place the manure so that it complied with the code? So it wasn't within 100 feet of a lot line?
Well, technically you could, but unfortunately, if you put it anywhere else on the lot that's flat for a manure pile, it would be close to the Simon's property. And if you go back from the barn, it's all uphill to the upper riding ring behind the middle pasture there, where it says Lot R1 Logan subdivision right in the middle of that sheet. That's a grazing pasture. Another grazing pasture is to the northeast behind Rocheck's and next to Simon's, so that's grazing. Can't put manure there because it's too close to those two parcels. So this is the most practical location, and our plan is to, migrate manure from front to back part of the property, and the stuff's like black gold when you want to make gardens and things. So it sits and composts quite well.
Just, oh, Ed, you have a visitor. So if this board decided that as a condition to the variance for the manure pile, not to board horses, would you be amenable to that?
We will not be boarding horses. I have
Okay,
no problem with that.
just your horses that you have as big pets and you enjoy
Correct.
them.
Yeah, they're in their early mid-20s, like 23 or 24 almost. So we don't expect to have them for too many more years.
Okay,
So your question about boarding is more that we wouldn't add horses to the lot? Is that what you're saying?
right. I think if you board horses, you almost turn it into a business.
Yeah.
Which would, I think, raise some concerns, I think, for the board, at least for me anyway. But if you're
Okay.
using them more as, like you call them, your big pets, I would think, at least in my mind, the concern of the manure pile would be minimized.
It's a finite problem, time-wise, I think.
Right. Okay. Uh,
That doesn't mean if somebody eventually 20 or 30 years when we sell the property, maybe they want horses. I don't know if they would still have to come before the board, but
Right, well, right, so if there's a condition to granting the variance, if this board decided that for granting the piece of the manure pile issue, that there would be no horses permitted to be boarded there.
Or Mike,
that-
what about just no more than 2 horses?
Well, that's another thought too.
that would be, I would prefer that language, not that we're even thinking about boarding horses.
Sure,
We got
sure.
enough things, but
Okay,
yeah.
so you'd be open to that.
yes,
Okay,
for
fair
sure.
enough.
It's a 2-stall horse barn. There's no way to put more horses on without building on. So
Okay. Just gonna make a note of that. All right, anyone else have any questions for Mr. Logan?
thank you, Matt. I appreciate the suggestion.
Great, okay. I honestly was thinking about that a little bit. It's like, well, I hate to pin you down for something that you have a fair amount of land. But I think we got to the end result.
Mhm.
So, I'm not seeing anyone that has any of the questions. So, Mr. Logan, you will have an opportunity to, I guess, hear what the county planning board has to say. You'll have an opportunity to address any of those concerns. This board may have some more questions for you. And then we will go through each of the requested variances and address them and make a decision on the, I said it before, 19th. So this will
So-
be in person. Well, you're not going to be here, are you?
Unfortunately, we will be traveling that day, and I wouldn't be able to, in a position to call in even until, well beyond the time your meeting starts. So, and that's if airlines get scheduled perfectly. So,
You have
Um,
anyone that you feel to represent you at the meeting that you're comfortable with?
I will be asking Scott Harder, who did the survey work, and actually he was on the zoning board at the time that this was approved. So he's, I believe, quite familiar with this, and he prepared these plans. So if necessary, I'll have him come before the board to represent me.
Okay. Anything else from anyone?
Is there anything on YouTube? Anybody from YouTube comment?
No, there are no comments for this.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Logan, thanks so much for your presentation and your patience. And
No
we
problem.
will, I imagine, talk to Scott or whoever else is going to be representing you at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mike, and thank you for the board. Appreciate your hearing this.
You're very welcome. Thanks so much for the presentation.
Okay.
I have a question for Al. I didn't see any code comments on this application. Was there a reason behind it?
We're shorthanded, so I haven't had a chance to get to it.
Oh, okay,
I will get to it before the next meeting.
okay.
Okay, thanks, Fred. Anyone have anything else they want to discuss before we entertain a motion to adjourn? Ed, anything else you want to touch on before we adjourn?
Nope, just next meeting will be live and in person, right?
Very good. All right, we're going to plan on that.
Yep.
Start time 7 on Monday, Matt.
I'll be there.
Good. All right, everyone have a great evening. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
I make a motion to observe.
You too. Take care.
All right, good night.